Jeremy Hubert is here. He's an independent web developer. He's one of the rock stars of the web world. Why? Because he can talk Ruby on Rails.
True.
It is the hot language right now. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Ruby is, what Rails is, and then show you what it would be involved in. Do you think if somebody were coming out of school, or maybe a high school kid, wanted to know more about programming, wanted to do web programming, this would be a good place for him to start?
I do. I recommend it.
Yeah.
Him or her. Of course, these days we're seeing a lot more.
A lot of hers. A lot of hers. Let's talk first about Ruby. Ruby's a programming language, right?
Yes. Ruby itself is a language. So the difference a lot of people don't understand is...
Rails is not a language.
Rails is not a language. No, it's a framework.
Okay.
But Ruby is a language, much like Java or C++ or PHP or any of these...
When you first... did you go to study computer science in college?
No, I did not.
No, of course not.
Straight from high school.
Really?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Yes.
So what was the first language you learned?
PHP.
Very, very popular web language.
Yes.
Still is. It is the P in LAMP, for instance.
Exactly.
It's a very common web developing language.
And for years, that was the web developing language for quick scripting.
Good for quick scripting, not so good for developing a quick website.
Exactly, or a web application.
Yeah.
Java or .NET were much more preferable.
Right, and there's a lot of .NET development still going on. That's
is.
Microsoft's kind of house language. Ruby was developed in Japan about 10 years ago by a guy named Mats.
Yeah, he developed it out of university as a goal to make a beautiful language that was simple and fun to write.
People who write in Ruby say it's really expressive, that they could just kind of think in Ruby and write that way.
That is very true.
That's your experience?
It's very true. It feels very intuitive.
Yeah.
You can almost speak Ruby.
Okay, so Ruby's a language.
Correct.
What's Rails?
Now, Rails is a framework. A framework is a group of rules and functions built on top of a language.
Is it like a library of tools?
Yeah, it's a collection of libraries,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it allows you, for example, it takes care of all the complicated stuff about sending an email from your web application or connecting to a database. If you use a good framework, you can just specify what database you want to connect to, and your application should modify itself to work with the database.
It's kind of the process all along in programming has gone from very low-level languages, writing in assembler, machine language code, to tell the processor every single thing it has to do, and then going up to higher-level languages like C and then C++, and then scripting languages like Perl and PHP and Python and Ruby. And now one step higher, where you're still writing in Ruby, but a lot of the work is done for you. So you're really not even thinking about the processor, not even thinking about the computer, really, are you?
Not so much.
It's completely independent of the hardware.
Yeah, and actually with Rails itself, I spend more time thinking about the business problem than I do about anything else.
Which is what makes it easy to develop. Is there a lot of stuff written in Ruby on Rails these days?
There is a lot of things. We're seeing a lot more come out these days because you're able to think of an idea and solve a business problem and write the code behind it, and Ruby makes it, I actually find it fun to write.
Right.
I built an application on the plane flying down to a client and sold it when I got to the client.
You're kidding? Well, it ain't so
like
bad then.
3 hours.
Wow.
You can actually think and develop an idea in your head and then put it down. It's just, you don't think about the computer problem.
Do you think that's one of the reasons we're seeing so many new sites in Web 2.0 is that you can have a concept and you can get it out there in the public eye very, very quickly?
Very quickly.
Yeah. Show us some sites that people are doing in Ruby on. I mean, is there a particular look that you'll notice? Oh, that's Ruby. Can you look at a site and say Ruby on Rails?
Not necessarily a site, but you can look at functionality a lot of times.
Yeah.
You might have heard of terms like Ajax and Prototype, these JavaScript-based things.
Right.
Ruby helps make those very easy. So a lot of these sites are having like menus that come down or autofill information for you a lot quicker.
Rails was developed by 37 Signals, which did Basecamp and so many of these great Web 2.0 sites.
They've really been a pioneer of the simplicity.
It was a tool they did for themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
And then gave to the world.
And they've had tremendous success with these websites.
Yeah.
So we've got the Basecamp site that you mentioned. We've also got Blinksail, which is a fantastic invoicing app built in Ruby on Rails.
Yep.
And Corked, which was a wine community put together by a designer and one programmer.
Just got bought, by the way.
It did.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they made a little money on this. There is a certain similarity. Maybe that's just a design similarity. Big letters, a very bold, simple look and feel. But that's not Ruby on Rails.
Exactly. There's a lot of confusion there between what Web 2.0 is and Ruby on Rails. The Web 2 design style is very prominent these days.
But it's not required by Ruby on Rails.
You can use Ruby on Rails to do anything. In fact, I actually use Ruby on Rails on the Leo Laporte website.
All right, this is what I want to see. Now, Jeremy just kind of whipped this together, as a way to get the Lab with Leo, another way to use the Lab with Leo. Let's see what you did here.
So we've got the Lab with Leo website here.
Right.
And this is, I've taken your frame of the exact website.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to do is because I know that I'm going to be on this show,
Yes.
and I figured I might as well just add myself into the show.
Easy to add guests now. Add a new show. Look at that.
So I
this
went
is something we don't have. Okay.
I put this together this morning before coming on the show.
This is Rails running.
It took me about half an hour. This is Rails running inside the lab website. So I've used the frame. We can make it look however we want, and it's nice and easy for me to show. What episode? 74?
Yeah.
Episode number 74.
72, but that's close enough. Yeah.
All right, we'll go to 72.
Who cares?
Jeremy Hubert
Yep.
shows off Ruby on
Roar.
Rails. And add show notes. We get the air date, whenever we want it to be. We'll make it 2011 just in case
We're
we have to do
traveling in
edits.
time.
And we'll
so
add
all
our
of this
show.
functionality was kind of provided by Rails. You didn't have to really think about how to do it. You just thought about what you wanted.
Exactly. So a lot of the stuff that just happened here, I had to say, I want to make guests, I want to make shows. And
You
so,
think as a business process
Right.
instead of as a programmer.
Exactly. So I've added the ability to add guests and edit shows, and we can add